Cool. Looks like we live, Bobby.
Hey, hello everybody.
Hey guys. So this is a test. So please bear with us if there's any snags or if there's any hiccups. This is my first time doing this whole thing live. Um, so tonight, guys, we're joined by Bobby C. And Bobby's been abstinent from alcohol and drugs for many years, and he's going to share a bit of his story with us and sort of give us some insights into what he's up to these days. Bobby's on a bit of a mission, as am I. So yeah, so I'm going to hand it over to you, Bobby. Do you want to tell us a bit about your background, hey?
Well, 38 years I've been around this recovery industry. Let's just say recovery industry programs, models, methods, modalities. I joined Alcoholics Anonymous, and well, I didn't join. I was brought there by a friend. My wife was going to Al-Anon, and she introduced me to a friend because her girlfriend, uh, her girlfriend's husband was in Alcoholics Anonymous. So you know what? I was ready. This was, they call it a bottom. I don't even like to use the word bottom, but uh, I was ready. I said, yeah, bring him over. I said yes to help, and that was the start of it. 38 years ago. But I evolved through the program. I was lucky. I had an open mind from the very beginning.
Hmm.
And I was very fortunate that this gentleman that came over and helped me, he wasn't a big book thumper. He didn't try to tell me what to do. He didn't try to shove anything down my throat. So I was very fortunate in that way, you know.
Hmm.
And I tell my story on a lot of my podcasts, but like I said, I was fortunate because the gentleman that came over, he had two daughters. I had two daughters. Him and his wife and my wife were kind of hanging out together. So when we used to go out, I called him my sponsor because back then they had, they told you how to get a sponsor. Really, he was
Hmm.
just a friend of mine. I just considered him a friend. And all through all these years, I've always just considered when someone would ask me certain things, I rarely sponsored people. I bet you in 38 years I sponsored two or three people
Okay.
because I really didn't believe in that kind of sense because I wasn't ready to push ideas and ideology and the 12 steps down people's throat. Even though eventually I did, Lonnie left. Lonnie was my first friend in recovery,
Hmm.
and Lonnie left, and I did move on, and I did do all the steps and got a different sponsor, and but I was fortunate. I always went outside the triangle. I call it,
Okay.
and I always read other books, went to other different types of groups, got other knowledge, information, and I evolved,
Hmm.
throughout the years. Even though I was
Hmm.
in Alcoholics Anonymous, I was going against the stream. I would say,
Okay.
as they talk about it, going against the stream. So I
Okay.
was lucky. A lot of the stuff that people encounter, um, because I tried to stay away from groups. Like uh, when I had the clubs. They have these clubs, AA clubs,
Yeah.
and I tried to stay away from the clubs, and I joined more or less small home groups, and I that was my choice. So I kind of chose that. All
Hmm.
along, I found out that I was doing I was working my own program. I was choosing.
Hmm.
I was deciding.
And
I was
that's
taking.
like working your own programs frowned upon in that community, right?
Exactly. My
Mm,
whole podcast today is about power of choice, the freedom and the power of choice, and making and creating your own program. Because I don't think there's. I don't care where you go to seek help. No
mm,
matter where you go, it's always coming from you. It's always coming from your perception and your reality, and you're the one that's choosing it and saying, yes, this will work. So it works. You know what? You know the old saying that says it works if you work it. I believe it works if you believe it.
mm,
Okay, if you believe it's going to work, it'll work, and then you give credit to the place, person, or situation. But really, it's your belief that's creating the perception and the reality of the change. It's creating the change.
Mm.
Ask any question you like about my years in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Um, Geez, the biggest question for me, because I'm on a crusade around the whole anti-medication thing. So, that's the biggest question for me. Really, is like, did you? I mean, like, where does that come from? That ideology around sort of like psychiatry, and did you experience any of that kind of thing in your time?
You know what, Ryan? I was thinking about this because I posted your last podcast
Sure.
about that. And I look. I'm the type of person that I use kind of common sense, natural sense.
Yeah.
I don't go left, I don't go right, but I stay in the gray, but I can go left. I do go left and I do go
Yeah.
right, and I get information from. Now I'm using the word left and right. Don't take that in politically. I don't
From the
mean that.
states, right?
I mean it. The
Mm.
spectrum of reality, the spectrum of information, the
Mm.
spectrum
Mm.
of knowledge. So I take, throughout the 38 years I've been researching, I've been experiencing, talking with people, thousands of people, talking to people, and asked. I'm a very questioning. I like
Mm.
to think, question, observe, and become aware. So I asked a lot of questions, and
Mm.
I get a lot of answers, and I get a lot of different perspectives from different people. But
Mm.
what I found out is that it's my experience that is going to
Mm.
be right for me.
Sure.
Throughout all these years, it's my experience. So getting back to the uh, uh, dual diagnosed and
Mm.
in Alcoholics Anonymous, the meetings that I attended, if somebody came up to me, let's go back 38 years ago. I had a friend.
Mm.
First of all, way before then, I worked in a psychiatric hospital for 13 years. Okay.
Okay.
So I used to talk to the clients,
Mm.
patients, people. I used to talk to people. I don't even like to call them clients and patients, but
Mm.
I used to talk to people because, like I said, I question things, and I like to have conversations and ask. And
Mm.
I became friends with uh, most of the people that came down, and they sat and they would smoke. Way back then, they'd be sitting. You can have a smoking area, and they would smoke. And I go up on the floors. I could go up on the sixth floor. This was a state sanctioned psychiatric hospital. It was called
Okay.
It was called Lakeland down in Camden County. We had Ancora, which was a state, and then Lakeland was a state institution. So I was around psychiatric, let's just say psychiatric patients for years
Mm.
and years. But in AA, if somebody came up to me, one of my friends, his name was Paul,
Yeah.
and he was dual diagnosed. He suffered paranoid schizophrenic, and he was always on different types of meds, and he would try different types of meds,
Mm.
and he would because I'd pick him up and I would take him to meetings, because years and years and years ago, I used to there used to be meetings called Double Trouble.
Okay. Yeah, you've spoken
Now,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, now I don't like to say double trouble because I don't think it's trouble. I didn't even today I look back at it and that's kind of a label which I don't like today.
Mm.
I like the dual diagnosed rehab. My rehab
Mm.
cafe. I did a podcast from you're right now in South Africa,
Mm.
and you have a rehab center. You're look, you have so much knowledge. We did a podcast with a lot of patients and clients at your center
Mm.
last week, and I love doing that. So getting
Mm.
back, so Paul, I would pick Paul up,
Mm.
and Paul would tell me his episodes. Bobby, last week I had to go to the psychiatric hospital because I was hearing voices and seeing things and blah blah blah, and I would just listen.
Mm.
You know, I would listen to him. I never ever told him, Paul, don't take medication. I didn't even know back then. I didn't even know what psychiatric medications were. All I
Mm.
know was with. This is the only thing I knew. I knew Thorazine. They used to call it the
Mm.
Thorazine shuffle, uh, and that's the only thing I really knew. So I didn't see it a lot years ago. Okay, and even during the years, I think because, and I would tell people, if you're in Alcoholics Anonymous, if you're coming from a detox and you're going into a treatment center and you're going to come over to, they're going to make you come to Alcoholics Anonymous. They're going to tell you, this is the way. You got to go to AA. It's a disease. You need this for the cure. They're going to give you you're going to have immunity from it by helping others. If they're going to pump all this ideology to you, here's what I would say. If even if you're sent there by court, you have choices. Look at the meetings. Go into a meeting. If it's small, if it's quaint, if the people are kind of kind and considerate, if they're doing any of the shit that you don't like, find another damn meeting.
Or start your own meeting, hey?
Or start your own meeting. Or do something even better. Branch out and go into other modalities that aren't so dogmatic. That aren't really religious, that aren't telling you what to do and how to do it, and this is the only way. Go somewhere. There's so many other different choices. Back in 38 years ago, I didn't have a bunch of choices. If anyone's listening, please comment. Please put some comments, some questions, because Ryan can see it as it scrolls through. Do you have the comment button? Is there a comment button?
There's no one commenting, so
yeah, but it's available. So Ryan, my experience with that is that I didn't see that happen a lot, and if I did see it, I would have said something to the person. But me personally, but it goes on. I'm not denying that it doesn't go on. Okay, because I believe the people that are telling the stories about people telling people to get off their meds and stuff like that. Now, if you want to talk about, we can have a conversation too. You know what? Ask me another question, because I don't want to go there yet with that.
So you mentioned some other modalities. Do you want to talk about what else is available, or what other options there are?
Well, I don't know if you're in the, United States, I think, is different. We have more alternative methods. And I was talking to the clients over in the Addiction Recovery Center last week, and they were saying their choices are very few, if any.
Sure.
Here we have Smart Recovery. Okay. Smart Recovery is... I'm actually a Smart Recovery facilitator. So, I took the online course and studied and became a smart facilitator. But before that, I was a host. I was hosting a meeting with another gentleman that was a therapist, and he started one, and I helped him host it. And then I started my own meeting. Smart Recovery is very good because it's empowering. It has an exit strategy, and it's very different. It doesn't believe in labels, which I don't believe in labels either. And it doesn't believe in the disease concept. But it's very, it's more scientific based. It's more cognitive behavioral therapy, REBT, rational emotive behavior therapy. And SMART is actually, I'll say it right here, it was Jack Tremblay, I think his name was Jack Tremblay. He started Rational Recovery years ago.
Okay.
And that's a spin-off of Jack's program, Rational Recovery. It's not a spin-off. They actually, the board of directors hijacked it and took it over. Okay. Well, we can get into that. But that's another alternative. Okay. But here's the thing, though. Like, even back in my days when I was going to meetings, they would have like a van bring people from the psychiatric hospitals into our meetings, and they would participate in the meetings. They would come, have some coffee, they would listen, they would have some donuts, and we'd smoke cigarettes at the meetings, and we'd have smoke breaks, and they enjoyed them, and they listened. They listened, and they had a choice to come, but their only choice was Alcoholics Anonymous. But we allowed them to come into our meetings. So we were having like dual diagnosed meetings. We were used to that
without calling them that. Sure.
Back in Jersey, when I was, that was common that happens. Now, let's say today, Smart Recovery or even Alcoholics Anonymous, what they do is they have vans of people coming from treatment centers today. Okay, and sometimes they'll come in the AA meeting and there'll be 10 of them, or 2 of them or 5 of them or whatever that they can hold. Now the thing is that when they come to a smart recovery meeting, a lot of times they'll be indoctrinated already into AA,
Mm.
because at their treatment centers they don't have a choice. They only have Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, but they're allowed now. The courts have changed. They're starting to slowly but surely allow alternative programs and giving people in treatment choice here in the U.S., which is very good. So you got Smart. Check it out. You get a book for $15, and they got a lot of basic tools and strategies, which is very good. Okay. Then over here we have Recovery Dharma, which is kind of it's a Buddhism philosophy, which I think you were saying that you may be going to a Buddhist retreat, right?
Sure.
And I kind of, they say Buddhism is not a religion, it's a philosophy, and I've been to many different. See, over here in the U.S. we had Recovery Dharma is a spin-off of this other Buddhist practice, and they spun off because they had some controversy going on. But that's big over here, so people are going to.
Was that 12-step based?
No, it's
Not at all. Okay.
no, not 12-step based. It's you go into the meeting. They have a meditation. There's a format. I have all the formats. Maybe we could do a whole podcast on Recovery Dharma. We could do a whole podcast on Smart Recovery. We could do a whole podcast on a lot of different things.
Sure.
But it's not 12-step based. So we have some alternatives here in the United States today. And let's be real. There's a lot of people. I say they're saying, the statistics say that the majority of people grow out of this habitual habit. Okay, alcohol and drugs use habitually. A lot of people grow out of it. Okay, and then a lot of people. There's like Matt. Over here we have MAT, Medical Assistant Treatment. And you probably could be interested in that too. I mean, you heard of Matt, which over here they believe in harm reduction. We have harm reduction over here, which is another modality, right? We have the Sinclair method.
So we got an anonymous comment, which is awesome. I don't know who the Facebook user is, but thanks for the comment, man. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we have a Sinclair method, which is a medication to kind of curb the desire, and what anonymous addiction, my truth about AA, as Bobby C sees it, private Facebook, private group on Facebook. What my whole thing is about creating your own. Going wherever you want. If you want a little bit of this, a little bit of that, go here, go there. You want to try out a method or modality, try it out. If it doesn't fit, go where else. But my thing is, today I'm not a fanatic in one group. I take a little piece of all the groups and I create knowledge. It's worldly, universal knowledge, and I take it and I make it my own.
Okay. So, are you there, Bobby?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You were freezing up a bit. So, you're not. I know you're not by any means sort of anti the 12 steps. In other words, right? You're like pro whatever path any person wants to really take.
Well, if anyone goes on YouTube, I have Anonymous Addiction Deprogramming Podcast. So I deprogram the whole 12 steps, 12 traditions, the big book, the 12 and 12 book. I deprogram it because, yes, I believe I am. If you want to say anti something, I think I'm pro information.
Okay.
Let's, instead of saying anti AA, I'm pro freedom, pro freedom of choice, pro freedom of, in a sense, not political. I'm not talking political.
Yeah.
I'm pro expansion of your consciousness, pro awareness, pro checking other things out. So
Because I get a sense that from your podcast on YouTube that you do feel that the 12 steps or the AA ideology is somewhat limiting, right?
definitely it's antiquated. It's an 86-year-old antiquated modality, which look, Bill and Bob, when Bill W. and Bob met, Dr. Bob met, there wasn't even didn't even exist. They didn't even have a name. They didn't have a book. They didn't have a program. They belonged to the Christian Oxford group, and that's how they claim they got sober, through God. They went up to the bedroom, and they dropped to their knees and they surrendered to their life. And me being raised a Catholic, I know what religion is. Alcoholics Anonymous to me is a religion. Okay, it's actually a cult mentality religion. And was I in it for years? Yes, I was. Luckily, there's a majority of people that are similar to myself, okay, and similar to most people that go and check out other things, but they still believe in Alcoholics Anonymous, because we're indoctrinated into thinking that we have a disease, which I don't believe in a disease model whatsoever. So they believe they have a disease. And how do they believe the disease model? Is because it was given to me. 38 years ago, it was told that I had a disease. Okay? And this disease that they talk about, if you look in the medical journal, is a self-diagnosed disease. So
In the DSM.
Right, in the DSM, it's a self-diagnosed, it's labeled self-diagnosed if you look it up. And that, to me, I don't buy that either. I don't buy that, because they're even changing their language, but still in there it says alcoholism, and it talks about a disease. I believe we're diseased. We have disease, but not disease. We're not diseased. And when you raise your hand, and they're more or less convincing or telling or indoctrinating people on a daily basis that they are alcoholic. Okay, the word alcoholism, Magnus, 1849 came up with the word and wrote a thing about alcoholism. Okay, and that's years ago. That's when it originated. And even way back then, Benjamin Rush in the 1800s talked about alcohol use and how it was a poison. Me personally, I believe in abstinence. For me. That's for me. But I believe if somebody wants to use marijuana for maintenance, or somebody's microdosing, or somebody's in Sinclair method, or somebody's moderating, or somebody uses MAT, moderation therapy, hey, do it. Do your thing. Whatever is going to work for you works for you. I just found out for me, the best for me, my body, mind, and spirit. I believe in spirit. Or a soul, or just a heart, or emotions. For me, abstinence is the easiest, simplistic, natural way. Today I see, this is what I perceive. It's my reality. Now, it may not be your truth or somebody else's truth, and I'm not trying to persuade anybody into thinking the way I'm thinking, but I can express what I feel is true today through observation, experience. I believe I'm a professional in my own life. I am my best mental advocate today. Now, I wouldn't tell a new person that really hasn't studied anything to not listen to their doctors or psychiatrists or therapists. But I believe throughout years of education and years of experiment with different medications, because I know I'm close to a lot of people that use psychiatric medicines, antidepressants, and different types of meds, and I've seen people experiment through the time, and some of them have weaned off of their meds,
Mm,
but they decided. I didn't decide for them.
mm,
Okay,
mm,
with the help of their doctor, with the help of their psychiatrist, they decided. Matter of fact, I don't want to share right now, but I'm going through something with somebody really close to me right now, and
mm,
they asked me, what do you think? And I said, I don't tell you. You talk to your psychiatrist and ask him, okay,
mm,
what you're thinking, how you're feeling, what it's affecting you, what side effects you're going through,
mm.
um, how it was before, how did you feel without meds. I'm asking her questions to ask maybe the doctor or the psychiatrist.
You
Uh,
know what's the thing about that though, Bobby, is like, uh, I've heard people say, uh, to us like. In a psychiatrist's mind, sort of like if to a hammer everything's a nail, right? So you go sit in front of your psychiatrist and you say, "Hey, listen, I'm not sleeping, my back's sore, and I'm depressed." So he's going to prescribe you an antidepressant, an opiate for the back pain, and a tranquilizer so you can go to sleep at night, right? So it's you know it's not as simple and straightforward as that. I suppose they sort of like look at the bigger picture and sort of want to sort of explore what sort of behavioral interventions or you know look at lifestyle and things like that as an initial uh, uh, thing to explore, right? But a lot of people believe like, and it's been my experience sometimes as well, that psychiatrists just off the bat, well, here's a script, there you go. So they, there's some truth to the idea that it's like an off the bat kind of like people just like sort of default to medication, as a solution. And a lot of people, I can understand why a lot of people aren't too keen on that idea. You know what I mean? So it's difficult because, yeah, you say somebody to tell somebody go to their psychiatrist, go to your doctor, and it's like, is this doctor a liberal? Is he liberal with his prescription pad, or you don't know, So that's why I'm an advocate for second and even third opinions,
exact.
maybe.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
with you. I'm on the I'm on the same page with you. Okay,
Okay.
because that's why I talk about the left. I don't mean left. I mean 1 to 10. Let's say 1 to 10 instead of left and right. 1 to 10. There's
Yeah.
there's like there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's everything in between. Okay, so
Mm.
there's some bad psychiatrists. Okay, there's some bad people.
I
People
have
are
I have to
you
say
know
they're few and far between, the bad apples. They really are. They're like a minority. To be
Okay,
like.
let's not even say bad. Okay,
Okay.
let's not say bad. Let's say this. Let's say that we're still in the experimental stages of these pharmaceutical drugs. Okay, we got to admit that we are guinea pigs in a sense of the pharmaceutical companies. When they come out with a new drug, we have to take them. We have to take them, and we're to experiment to see if it works or not. So a psychiatrist or whoever you go to, they're they don't know your brain. They don't know
No,
exactly what's
it's
in you.
it's an engineering kind of
It's
process.
an
You're right.
engineering kind of, and plus, not only that, the longer they get to know you, the longer that they get to know you, the more that they get to know you, the more you know,
Mm.
the more that they talk to you, and look, some are better than others. Let's admit it. Okay.
Yeah, look, so I know some kind of yeah, you're right. The different, they come from different schools, or they come from different sort of like they have different ideas. So I think, yeah, look, I think it's definitely a controversial subject, 100% tricky to navigate and have a conversation with, because I know you and I don't necessarily also see eye to eye perfectly on a lot of things, but I know it's always cool to have a conversation with you about it, because you open you don't outright sort of like boom, this is my opinion and you're out of line, and it doesn't get heated, and I appreciate that, and I enjoy that about having conversations with you, to be honest. And I think that's sort of just to tie that in with your deprogramming sort of idea, Bobby. I like that idea, because I often find myself thinking, a lot of, I mean, I've been involved with the 12 steps for 15 years. So, I mean, it's not as long as you were involved, but I mean, there's a lot of thinking that sort of comes along with sort of having been involved in that for so long, right? And, I have felt a lot of sort of like I have moved away from it somewhat and sort of become open minded to different ideas. And I think it's important, to kind of like be open minded and sort of not because they talk about being open minded in the fellowships or whatever you want to call it, and I genuinely don't think the guys that are sort of militant about it, they're not open minded. Hey, they strike me as in fact very narrow minded.
Yes. Yeah. See, they have a controlling minority. Okay,
Mm,
in every group, everywhere in the world, there's a controlling minority that sits. I've been to so many meetings that I can say this. I can make this statement because people say, "Hey, Bobby, do you have your data? Do you have your research?" I get that a lot.
mm,
Where's your data coming? You know where my data is coming from? It's coming from experience, and
mm,
I do my own trials, my own trial, and my information and my data comes from experience throughout many 30 something years attending these meetings. Okay, so what I discovered is they're pushing the minority. Let's say if you have a group of 15, you have seven of them, six of them, whatever, control the narrative. They control the agenda. They're the book thumpers. They keep you on track and they make sure everything is kind of ran right because that's their group, that's their home group, and they want to see it, ran the way Alcoholics Anonymous is designed.
mm.
Your opinion doesn't matter. They tell you that. When I say something, Bobby, your opinion, does it say it in the big book? And if it doesn't say it in the big book, you're wrong. So how
Sure.
open-minded is that? Come on. Honesty, it's called, they always say, how does it work? Oh, how? How does it work? Uh, Honesty, open-minded, and willingness. Well, that's not the case, okay? These podcasts that we're doing today are more honest, more open, and we're more willing to learn new, different ideas, and that's the truth of the matter. So when you listen to and don't forget to, people in South Africa, come join us because I'm international.
Mm,
Look, Anonymous Addiction Deprogramming Podcast is international. It's world. We have the internet. Anybody that calls themselves, anybody that goes on YouTube is international. All right. So
mm,
some people come up and say, "Oh, we're finally international." Well, look, come join me, Anonymous Addiction Deprogramming Podcast on YouTube, and listen to some of my podcasts. I get comments from people that attend AA thanking me. Okay,
mm,
because I'm not bashing. Look, it's
mm,
I don't like to use the word victim, but we are victims when we're vulnerable in the beginning. So we're like they know the vulnerable. So when we come in, they know that we're kind of victims of this so-called, you have this disease because you're coming out of treatment and you're told it's a disease. You're told it's incurable, and you're told that the only solution is to go to 12 steps and you shall live. And if you don't, you shall surely go to jail, institutions, or die.
Oh, got a interesting. Let's see here. Hmm. If I may add, this is a conversation I've been wanting to have for a while. As I know, over 10 years clean, never completed the steps. Okay, addiction without a sponsor the steps. However, do believe
Here
must
we
be
go.
removed from the people, places, and things which may entice the situation.
Hence, I love the feed. Reinforcement in society through facilities seem to be a. Hey, listen, yeah, definitely. Look in the beginning, people, places, and things. They talk about that, people,
Thanks for the
places, and
comment.
things.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, really.
Um,
Thanks. Please comment. This is what we
sure.
need. This will make a more exciting, balanced program and podcast if people even that don't disagree with us. Okay,
Mm,
we don't want everybody to agree with us that comes on the comments. We're not about that. So this
no.
gentleman just says it sounds like he attends NA or AA, and he's talking about they talk about people, places, and things in the beginning. Yes, for me, I had to do
Mm,
that. Okay,
sure.
because everybody I hung with was had an habitual habit.
Mm,
Everybody I hung with, you know. So I had to kind of leave at that time some of my friends. Me personally, I had to leave most of my friends because I had to in the very beginning because I wanted that was self-care for me. That was taking care of Bobby C. That was what I needed. It's not what everybody else, it's what Bobby needed. Did I go back to bars? No. No. Could I have
Mm.
went into bars? Possibly. I was working in the catering. I was pouring champagne in front of people. You know why I was staying clean? They say clean and sober. I don't even like to use the words clean and sober, but because I wanted to. A
Mm.
desire, look it up, look up the word desire in the dictionary. It just means wanting. It
Mm.
means wanting something. So I had a desire, and I didn't give my will and my life over to the care of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, they all tried to say I was doing it, but I don't think I ever did that. Because
Look, I think from some of the more militant guys um, are are so hardcore in terms of how they're so indoctrinated when they come out of like a hardcore 12-step treatment center that they'll come out and they'll write people off, they'll write friends off, and they'll be like, I've been friends with this dude for 15, 20 years, but they'll write that person off for because they still drink, or they for whatever reason, right? But it's and that's a hallmark of a cult, if you ask me. Okay, I'm not saying AA or any of those things are cults, right? But I think there are treatment centers that sort of almost perpetuate sort of sects that are just so far left or far right leaning that um it's absurd, and I think it can cause a lot of harm.
no, I
um
think look, you're right because here's the truth of the matter. I'm just saying for me in the beginning, I'm not advocating it. Okay,
yeah.
so I'm not telling everybody to do that because if I
You-
did, that's cult. That's the cult mentality.
mm,
Okay, here's what I'm saying. If I look back at it, that wasn't healthy for me. Okay, if I really look back at it and really uh, do shadow work on that, retrospect, look back, uh, my friends didn't drink and drug every second. They went
mm,
fishing. They went
mm.
hunting. They did other things. I could have joined them in many, many other things. So actually, you're right, and that's what I like about these podcasts because when I hear this, I can chime in about how they're how you I perceive what you're saying is true. Okay,
Mm.
and I can look back at it. So yes, I agree with you. To tell
Thanks,
people
Paul.
that is a cult mentality because
Mm.
I left some of my friends that we could have. I didn't leave them all. Look, I still
No,
had
look,
family.
I'm sure
No,
some
I
were
was
worse
married.
than others,
I
eh?
I was married. I had a
Okay.
wife and I had children. I had a job, so I still had obligations, and I had a few other friends that I associated with. I had a my wife had a big family, and we used to interact with the family and my mother-in-law. So I was very family oriented.
Mm.
Okay, but what I see happening is, yes, I do. I've seen it then, and I see it today. Is people and I just did a podcast. Listen to my last podcast, people. Okay, it's about the 12th step, and it's about the 12th step and actually how people do leave their houses. They neglect their family, they neglect their wife, they neglect their children, they neglect their friends, and they go into the cult mentality and they go fanatic. They become fanatics, and that's what a cult mentality is. So they join this Alcoholics Anonymous. They leave their relationships at home because this is the most important thing. That to me is very egotistical, centric, thinking about yourself all the time. That isn't self care either. That's more like neglect.
Mm.
Okay, neglect of
So
your
you get
wife, your
clean and
kids.
sober so you can have a bit of a laugh, like at least. But Bobby, you know what? Say, when I got clean and sober when I was 23, right? I went into treatment, and it wasn't a hardcore sort of like brainwashing process. It was just I went into treatment. I think I was in for 6 or 7 weeks. I moved into a halfway house for about 9 months after that. I didn't write any of my friends off, or sort of like treat them as though they were like the plague or whatever. What I did do though is, like I had a buddy phone me on a Sunday morning and he was wasted, and he was harping on about something on the phone, and I could hear he'd been drinking, and I just said, listen, man, do me a favor and phone me when you're sober. Like, like I think that was as far as it went. And what did happen though is I also started making other friends that were sort of that were clean and sober, and we went on cool outings, and we sort of, it was like a new adventure, right? um and I remember speaking to the owner of the treatment center that I was in, and I said, because one of my best friends was in fact one of these hardcore indoctrinated guys, old Brian. He passed away, but we always used to have long debates, and sort of like stand on the corner at the the filling station, the petrol station, and have coffee and have long debates about medication and all sorts of stuff. And it was always cool. Then it was never like, I'm gonna write you off because you take medication, or it was none of that kind of shit. But um, anyway, so yeah, made new friends, went on a new adventure. It was cool. And that's it's the contrary to what you were saying. You were saying you were married and sort of had all those kinds of responsibilities, and it was weird because I didn't have those kinds of responsibilities back then. I was still like very young, and anyway. So, but yeah, just relating to your story, man. Yeah,
You know what? See, this is how I kind of I love doing podcasts, because when you talk, it brings back stuff.
sure.
Okay, so it brings, I go back in the past. I'm doing it right now. Of course, I believe in the power of now. So
Yeah.
whatever I'm doing or whatever I'm thinking now. I'm thinking about the past, and it's coming into my consciousness right this moment. But you know what? You're thinking, yeah, I did make a bunch of new friends, and we used to, you know what? It's like whatever you decide, you create it no matter what. So I created to hang with people that weren't big book thumpers.
Mm,
I didn't hang with them. I didn't but I was involved. I used to have softball games, AA. I call them AA softball games because a lot of people, and I used to hand out flyers, and we'd have AA softball, we'd have AA cookouts.
mm,
We have to admit that there was a connection.
mm,
Okay,
mm,
there was a lot of meetings. We can't deny that. There was a lot of meetings. There was a lot of fun. Okay,
mm,
my wife and my kids, there was a lot of fun. We didn't go around doing little studies and talking about AA and talking about, did you do this 4-step, and did you? We didn't talk about none of that shit. We talked about life, and we were living life.
mm,
Okay, and you brought that back, going to picnics and barbecues, and I didn't do that all. I didn't do that all the time, all the
mm,
time. But when there was a function like that, me and my wife had something to go to, and I
mm,
felt safe. I felt
mm,
safer than going to a bar or going to another picnic in the beginning. Now later on, during let's say during this recovery process, if you want to call it that, I could go anywhere.
mm,
But where I would go is, why would I want to go to a bar where everybody's drinking and I'm not? That
mm.
didn't make sense. It
Uh,
wasn't common sense. But I would go to a bar if half of the people that I knew weren't, or I'd go to a
mm,
wedding where not everybody was drinking, but some
mm,
of my old friends were, and I could have a conversation with them. And I'll tell you what, I was not a fanatic. I didn't go around saying, you better get sober, you better not drink. I was not a prohibitionist reformer evangelist that used to do that type of stuff. So I was lucky in that sense too.
mm, mm, mm. I remember being at a wedding of one of my best friend's weddings, and he I remember phoning my sponsor. I was about six months sober, and I phoned my sponsor, and I was like, "Do I buy these guys around of milkshakes, or like how does this work?" And he said, "Dude, you're not a freak. Buy them a round of drinks. Buy yourself a milkshake." And that was cool. It was just an interesting process, but having a sponsor, like you say, you don't like using the word sponsor. I'm also starting myself personally to try and avoid using words that come from sort of that from the 12 step fellowships, because I want to sort of redesign the way I see things a little bit, to be honest. and I'm glad I met you because this has been it's this is part of that process. Um, There's another comment, Bobby. Let me take a look.
So if I may ask, what's your take on relapse with all your gatherings from all the different groups and methods to come across? Is it still called relapse? Not sure if the question us coming across correct. No, he's coming across. You're coming across
Good question.
excellent. Okay,
Thanks.
it's a
Yeah.
very excellent question. See the comments and the questions. We appreciate these questions so much. Ladies and gentlemen, or whoever, you can join us. You're allowed to press a button, and you could come right on if you'd like to. That's your choice. But to get to this relapse, okay, it's let's just use smart recovery. We Because it's so empowering, it's more of an empowering. So we don't look at relapse, let's per se. We look at, okay, you picked up again. Luckily, nothing happened. Nothing, and even if it did, you did not lose anything from your past information, the knowledge that you gather, the awareness that you gathered, the book that you read, the information it's still there. It's in your mind. You didn't lose nothing. How could you lose time when time is there? It's not real. You only have the now. So how can you be any different than somebody else? Okay, relapse. No, I don't buy that relapse. I don't like to even use the word. What'd you do? Did you go get drunk again? Okay, so you got drunk again. Anything happen? No, not really, nothing dramatic. Okay, so did you learn something from it? Yeah, you know what? I don't think I should do it, or maybe I should moderate. Maybe I should try hams. Hams is harm reduction for alcohol use. So maybe I should try hams. Maybe I should check out my drink count. Maybe I should be abstinence. Maybe abstinence isn't for me. Maybe Sinclair met. Hey, relapse. What the hell? We're always relapsing. I'm over here fighting with my. What do I relapse every time I argue with my wife and open my mouth? Oh, I had a relapse. I opened my mouth again and I got my foot stuck in my throat. Good point. Good question. I hope maybe
Sure.
maybe something got out of that. But maybe we could clarify that. More questions, more clarification. Hey, I'm just passing out my stuff. What
Mm.
I found out throughout these years. Good question. Please come back with some questions. And come on, you could come live. You could press a button and you could join us anytime you want. If you're sitting
Have-
in the background,
How do I
you
do
got
that?
any?
Is that set
You,
up?
you got to let them into the studio. Do you see anybody that wants to
Oh,
come into the studio?
okay. So if they pop up, then I just let them in. Okay. All right. No one's popped up, so
Yeah, that's okay. We're going to do a bunch of these, so
mm.
just and then we'll announce when they're going to be when they're going to
In
happen.
advance. Yeah, this was. I just wanted to do a surprise test sort of run, so this worked out quite nicely. Yeah, thanks, Bobby.
It,
Yeah,
yeah, this is no test. This is the real deal. We're doing it right now.
yeah,
We're
sure.
we're authentic. Okay, this ain't no bullshit. Look. I'm a professional. You know what? I'm a professional in my own experience, my own life. People want to say they're professional, they're more professional than me. First of all, we can get into that indoctrination through the educational system too. I could go there because that goes a little deep down the rabbit hole, and we don't have to do that on this podcast. But I delve into that a little bit too. Okay, how it was created, when it was created, why it was created. So be careful of all the titles.
Mm.
Titles are good. I like Ryan has a really nice gal that comes on and does a lot of his podcast
Lario,
on yeah,
sure.
she's very very good. I like her. Maybe me and her, maybe she could come on with us one day. Maybe next week she could come on this live stream with us and
Yeah,
help us
that'll be
out.
cool.
Yeah, about some stuff. I'm sure she's open minded to hearing some things too.
Definitely, sure. Yeah, yeah. Cool. Okay, so um, basically, should we wrap it up, hey, Bobby? Or do you want to
Well,
keep?
let's ask the audience. You have any more questions, Ryan? Because it's got to come from you.
Um, I think it's just you know, I think the deprogramming from AA or from the 12 steps kind of thing, a lot of people will call that like an incredibly risky sort of idea to even consider, you know. Um,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, I mean, I think I've even thought that it's like, hey, that might be a bit of a dangerous thing to put out there. Um, and like seriously, because um, look, people can relapse, and bad, really, really, really bad things can happen, um, and do happen, in fact. Um, but like you say, Bobby, again, it's not necessarily like sort of espousing, you know, like 12-step fundamentalist ideology is going to just like perfectly keep you clean. Um,
Here's the thing. Let me
so
jump in, Ryan, right with that
yeah,
because you touch it. As soon as you start talking about stuff like that, I pop in and my brain just starts to roll. Okay,
cool.
here it is. Here it is. I can't get anybody sober. I can't keep anybody sober. It's got to
Yeah.
come from them. It's
Mm,
got to come from you, not me. I can be a pointer. I can maybe inspire somebody or uh, maybe motivate. Motivation only lasts for a long time, a little short time, unless you get self-motivated. That's why they call it self-help. It comes from the self.
mm,
Okay, self-analysis, self-examination. It comes from oneself. So
mm.
self-help comes from oneself. So I'm not ashamed or I don't have any fear of that. People can put that projection onto me and say, Bobby, you could be hurting people. Not today, not in today's world. Look, if you want to blame it on the excuse, if you want excuses, here I'll give you some excuses. You could blame it on the disease, blame it on me, blame it on your parents, blame it on society, blame it on you didn't do the 4-step, you didn't do the 5th step, you didn't have a sponsor, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. You can blame it on everybody. Blame it on me. I don't care. I don't care because I know it's not real.
Mm. Yeah, so look, again, I think that 12-step fellowships provide an awesome structure, and there's lots of tools, and there's a community, and it's really well, it's well established, if I can say, because it's been around for so long, right? So again, there's an option, right? But it's not the only option. And I know a lot of people, like you mentioned, secular sort of ideas. I know also hearing the word God, I struggle with that. I really do, and even just formulating a practical idea of that sort of battle with, right? So uh, again, you mentioned that the recovery dharma, so again, it's also probably something that's well established and has infrastructure and community. And look, not so much in South Africa, but that's what we're trying to do with the My Rehab Cafe thing, right? So we're creating that overarching sort of structure, and within it we can have an online AA meeting and an online sort of recovery dharma thing, and everybody can sort of meet up and argue about their different points of view or whatever. It's, if they want to do it in person or online, or but again, the point is we're creating that structure, and I'm really glad that you're part of this process, Bobby, and hope we can get some momentum going with this whole thing.
No, exactly. I appreciate it. I mean, I
Mm,
look. I appreciate you so much for your time and effort and creating this friendship between us from distance. Look, we're doing it.
of course, yeah,
We're not at a meeting, okay?
sure.
Zoom has changed everything. This pandemic is a look with every seed of adversity. No, whatever adversity, there's a seed or equal of benefit. Okay, so the benefit of this pandemic is we got connected, man. I got
Mm,
more powerful. This pandemic didn't stop me. It gave me more freedom and more power because I didn't stop. So this Zoom stuff and this online international online programming, what we're doing right now, is is is
mm,
really getting big.
the way
And
forward. Yeah.
words have power. Words cast spells. Repetition cast spells. We can get it here. Is it the same as the connection of getting hugs and touching people and being face to face? Probably not. Look, before this pandemic, I searched out a place, a rehab center, And I asked the guy if I could come in. I started an AA meeting, a secular AA meeting, a recovery Dharma meeting, a smart recovery meeting, and I created my own meeting, which I tend to go towards now and put my energy into it, is recovery and beyond. Beyond recovery. Beyond recovery. I'm getting into stuff. I'm talking about things that haven't been talked about before, like not celebrating this addiction recovery thing, because what it does, it reinforces the label, and it re-stigmatizes you over and over again by just celebrate. Hey, 90 days is a great thing. A year, but why should I be every year celebrating my 38 years in sobriety because I'm doing something that I was supposed to be doing anyhow, and I'm treating human beings the way I should be treating human beings in society, okay? I don't drink or drug anymore. So I decided to quit again. Will I smoke again? Maybe. I
I tried
can't
to
say.
start a Nicotine Anonymous group once. I
There.
got all the literature in and it didn't
But you
quite
know
work
what?
out.
But that's what Anonymous Addiction Deprogramming Podcast, or Anonymous Addiction My Truth. I'm going to change the name My Truth About AA eventually. My Truth About Life. Anonymous Addiction, because we when I talk, I try to relay a message that any habitual habit, processed or not, gambling, nicotine, drinking, porn, shopping, social media, whatever, it's all the same. If you want to try to change your behavior, it's got to come from you. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, okay? So when I talk, I don't have to specifically talk about any addiction. When you listen to a lot of our podcasts, you can apply this anywhere to your life strategy as some tools and strategies.
Looks like the stream bombed on Facebook for some reason. I don't know what happened. It sort of bombed out.
That's okay. So that's it. We're
Yeah.
done. Come
Okay,
join me at
cool.
Anonymous Addiction, My Truth About AA, as Bobby sees it, on Facebook, private group, and check out my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to Anonymous Addiction Deprogramming Podcast. You'll see that I don't bash members, because I used to be a member. What I do is I deprogram the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I talk about a lot of other alternatives. So thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
And
Bobby. Cool.
next time we'll have a couple people join us, I'm sure, and
Sure.
more comments.
I'll put the links to your channels on all the comments and things. Yeah, cool.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Bobby. Okay, chat soon, man.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah, bye.